I speak plainly, because princes who love perfumes more than steel seldom keep their thrones. If power is to live, something must die. But take care to understand me correctly. The death I commend in a well-ordered republic is not the spilling of blood, it is the extinction of a rival claim to rule the fall of an argument. A network, a myth. To kill a body is crude, uncertain, and often ruinous. To kill a story is statesmanship. In my youth I learned that the people are a sea, and that the prince floats or sinks by the currents he creates or endures. In my old age, were I to stand in your square, I would find that the people dwell also in a storm without walls. The new piazza is not of stone but of light, where each tongue is multiplied, and injuries, like sparks, travel faster than the hand that struck them. In such an age, let no ruler be so foolish as to dream that violence against a well-known adversary will secure him. He will not win a corpse but a martyr. And martyrs are the most dangerous soldiers, for they require no pay and haunt even the victors. You will say to me, but Niccolò, is not force the foundation of all dominion? I answer, force founds, law sustains, and narrative commands the obedience of those not touched by either. If you shed the blood of a popular figure in a free nation, you exchange a noisy irritant for a silent idol. You make a man who once had limits become a symbol with none. A living enemy is vulnerable to contradiction. A dead one is perfected by his friends, absolved by his mourners, and multiplied by every injustice they can recount with tears. Believe me, to kill a man is often to beget a multitude. In republics, power breathes by legitimacy. Legitimacy is the belief that your hands do not steal from the common good when they take the reins. Violence against a rival, except in the strict enforcement of just laws plainly applied, stains those hands and adulterates belief. The people do not always reason well, but they feel well. They smell when a prince is afraid. Blood has a smell. It says, he could not prevail in daylight, therefore he hired the night. Then the people, whose affection grows from lawful strength, begin to withdraw from the prince as from a well that tastes of iron. The prince, thirsting, drinks harder, and the taste grows worse. In this way, imprudent cruelty writes its own dismissal. I have been accused of praising cruelty. Those who accuse me have not read me. I spoke of cruelties well used, swift, necessary, and then stopped, to secure order for the greatest number. But understand, in a republic and many modern polities are such in form, if not always in soul, the only cruelty that can be called well used is the cruelty of law. Impartially applied and visibly constrained, everything else secret, daggers. Extrajudicial stratagems will sooner or later return with attacks not of coins but of confidence. And when confidence is spent, armies and decrees are but ropes of sand. Consider further the economy of martyrdom in our new piazza. The marketplace of voices is ruled by appetites more than by arguments. Outrage is bread, spectacle is wine. If a man with a multitude of listeners suffers an unlawful blow, the marketplace rewards not the prudence of rulers, but the passion of the wounded. The algorithms of attention, these hidden stewards of the crowd, do not ask whether a message eases the common good. They ask whether it moves. A death moves. Therefore, if a prince seeks quiet by the sword, he will reap noise. If he seeks forgetfulness by erasure, he will reap remembrance. For this reason, in our time, more than in mine, the political assassination of a famous rival is self-harm by other means. What then does it mean that a figure must die for power to live? It means that competing claims to rule must lose their force, their plausibility, their coalitional glue, their fundraising myths, and their moral alibis until they become like a banner that cannot catch the wind. This death is a process, not an event. It is accomplished not with daggers but with instruments that seem commonplace and yet are sovereign. Performance, law, coalition, and narrative. First, performance. In free nations, the people tolerate many things, but not incompetence that touches their bread. A ruler who supplies order, prosperity, and predictable justice drains rivals of oxygen as a fire is suffocated under a lid. The most lethal refutation is a well-governed city. To defeat a popular agitator, govern so that his prophecies fail. Let him predict famine, deliver grain. Let him declare chaos, deliver safety. Let him swear that the courts are corrupt, appoint judges who bind even your friends. Then observe how his audience, which came for an apocalypse, departs for supper. Second, law. The Republic's strength is not that it avoids conflict, but that it contains it. A wise prince never weaponizes law to invent crimes for opponents. He weaponizes law to enforce clear rules already acknowledged by friend and foe. Seek not the man, but the misdeed, and bring it to light in procedures that withstand scrutiny. If your rival has committed a true offense, your task is not to make him disappear, but to make his defense fail under the weight of impartial facts. Do this, and he suffers the only honorable death in a republic, the death of his credibility. Fail, and you will gift him what no money can buy, the aura of persecution. Third, coalition. A man who speaks loudly is often held together by threads that quarrel in private. The art is not to cut the cloth, but to pull the threads. Divide his partners by offering each what they cannot get while clinging to him. To the sanctimonious ally, offer clean hands reforms he cannot accept without losing the fervent. To the fervent, offer urgency the sanctimonious cannot stomach without blush. Court the second and third ranks. Flatter their future. Invite them to committees that require attendance at the very hour their leader needs them on stage. The most industrious general is the one guarding his own promotion. Fourth, narrative. Understand that the true battlefield is not the chamber, but the frame through which the chamber is seen. A rival's strength is rarely the novelty of his ideas. It is the moral picture he paints of himself, the defender, the outsider, the tribune of those ignored. Your reply must therefore be to recast the picture without lying. For lies rot the brush. Take his claims and pin them to outcomes he cannot defend. Contrast his rhetoric with his record. When he speaks of sacrifice, count his stipends. When he boasts of courage, measure who paid the cost. When he invokes the people, show which people were served and which were spent. Never say what you cannot show. Show what you need not say. You will notice that none of these instruments require a funeral. Let princes who cannot govern well dream of silencings. Let rulers who cannot persuade fantasize about erasures. The prudent prince chooses daylight over darkness, because daylight lends him the strength of the many. Power in a republic is not a lion that hunts alone, but a chariot that must be pulled by uneven horses. Judges who prefer rules, merchants who prefer stability, soldiers who prefer clarity, mothers who prefer quiet nights. To keep this team, you must not whip it with scandal. You must yoke it with confidence. But Niccolò, you will protest. What of the dangerous man who flirts with disorder? Who profits by inflaming the multitude? Can such a one be left to speak? I tell you, in a republic, the most potent defense against a demagogue is not the knife but the net. Transparency, reciprocity, and predictable penalties for defined harms. If he speaks falsely, force him under law to correct or answer. If he defames, require remedy. If he incites crime, prosecute the crime. Each step must be public, methodical, and boring. Boredom is the death of spectacle. The more his theater is dragged into procedure, the fewer tickets it sells. Beware also the alchemy of suppression. To remove him from every platform may quiet your ears but magnifies his legend. The people adore forbidden fruit, and they who would never have tasted it now drink out of mischief. The wiser course is structured contest, not total banishment. Rules that mark the boundaries of speech and conduct, enforced by institutions that show their workings, with remedies that restore rather than revenge. In this way, you deny him the crown of exile and dress him instead in the plain cloth of accountability. Know as well that symbolic politics flags, slogans, rights of belonging bind men more tightly than white papers. A rival becomes unkillable, politically, when he becomes a ritual. Therefore, you must supply better rituals, visible acts of civic dignity that attract the same hearts he courts. Create occasions where citizens behold themselves as partners in a common project, not customers of your benevolence. A prince who only distributes benefits buys gratitude that expires with the loaf. A prince who enlists the citizen buys loyalty that renews itself. Finally, learn to hold your temper in the carnival of insults. The new piazza rewards those who cannot be seduced into a duel of slanders. Every word you spend answering calumny and kind purchases, more of it tomorrow. Let your answers be measured, evidential, brief, and always paired with a deed that makes the answer unnecessary. When you are seen repairing a bridge, no slander about your hatred of travel will long survive. Thus do I teach, for power to live. The rival's claim must die, not the rival. The Republic's genius is that it gives a multitude of non-violent instruments for such a death. Princes who refuse them are not strong but lazy. They want the ease of a single blow where only repeated mastery will do. The blade is fast, legitimacy is slow, but the blade cannot cut the wind, and reputation is wind. Understand this above all. Nothing nourishes a rival so greatly as his transformation into a martyr. This truth is ancient, but in your age it has grown monstrous. For the engines of attention turn drops of blood into rivers of spectacle. I, Machiavelli, will show you why the attempt to destroy a rival by force or unlawful silencing so often forges the very weapon that wounds the prince. The alchemy of martyrdom. In the republics of old, the Senate feared not most the orator alive, but the orator slain unjustly. Gracchus in Rome, Savonarola in Florence, both were dangerous while living. But in death, they became legends. Death purified their cause of human frailty, debts, errors, contradictions. What remained was the myth, stripped of imperfection, nourished by grievance. The same occurs in your time, only multiplied by devices that carry rumor swifter than cavalry. A man living can be corrected, debated, mocked. A man killed outside the law cannot be corrected. He is frozen, embalmed in sympathy. Those who once doubted him now rally to him. For grief is the most contagious of passions. And in democracies, grief is currency. It purchases attention, mobilization, and votes. The most dangerous enemy is the one whose absence speaks louder than his presence. The modern theater of grievance. In your age, martyrdom is not confined to the tomb. Censorship, cancellation, deplatforming, these are the new executions. When a voice is silenced without transparent justification, its power often increases. For the crowd whispers, if he were harmless, why silence him? Suspicion is more enduring than speech. An inconvenient truth may be forgotten if ignored, but a forbidden word becomes eternal. Thus, many rulers of your age make the gravest mistake. They confuse the management of noise with the defeat of ideas. Look at the Republic of America today. It is not the bullet that makes martyrs, but the algorithm. Every suspension, every deranking, every shadow ban becomes fuel. A shrewd agitator thrives on the image of persecution. His supporters wear the badge of victimhood as a uniform. It binds them tighter than victory could. To be attacked by the prince is to be sanctified by the people. Therefore, princes who would secure their dominion must never act in ways that feed this theater. The crowd has a taste for drama. Do not cast your rival in the role of hero. Cast him instead in the role of hypocrite, opportunist, or bore. Heroes multiply when slain. Opportunists vanish when unmasked. Attention as the new battlefield. In my Florence, the battlefield was territory. In your America, the battlefield is attention. Whoever commands it rules, and whoever loses it withers. Violence gives attention. Suppression gives attention. Only irrelevance kills. Mark this law. A rival does not truly die until he is starved of attention. To strike at his person or silence him with force is to pour oil on the fire, but to drown him in the abundance of competence, law, and civic pride. This is to bury him without funeral. The prince must learn to be an engineer of attention. Flood the piazza with narratives that leave no room for the rival's myth. Give the people bread and spectacle, but let the spectacle be of your order, your triumphs, your justice. When the people are occupied with prosperity and civic rituals, the rival fades like a candle at noon. Lessons from antiquity and modernity. Rome learned this when it crucified rebels. The sight of 1,000 corpses did not extinguish rebellion, but seeded a faith that outlived the empire. France learned it when it guillotined its aristocrats. Terror begot terror, and no head was safe. America learned it when movements silenced by law became movements sanctified by song. In each case, the hand that struck gained nothing but more enemies. The modern prince must adapt. Law, transparency, ridicule, and overperformance are the only durable methods of extinction. You must never allow your rival to own the mantle of the wronged. Better he should wear the costume of the clown, or the traitor, or the weary irrelevance who repeats himself until even his friends yawn. Remember this: mockery is deadlier than murder. A rival slain may inspire, but a rival ridiculed is unfit for memory. Laughter dries the tears that would otherwise baptize a martyr. The paradox of suppression. Consider also the paradox. To suppress one rival too harshly is to unify his followers. To allow him to speak freely is to expose his contradictions. The prince must therefore prefer exposure over erasure. If the rival's ideas are weak, let them be heard until they collapse under their own weight. The Republic's courts, the Republic's press, the Republic's open debates, these are furnaces in which bad metal shatters. The prince's task is not to silence, but to frame the contest so that folly defeats itself. Thus I teach, in your age of spectacle, the manufacture of martyrs is the gravest sin of a ruler. To kill influence by violence is to resurrect it in legend. To kill it by ridicule, law, and overperformance is to bury it forever. In the previous lesson, I warned against the folly of martyr-making. Now I instruct on the art of non-violent defeat, how a prince may reduce a rival from menace to irrelevance, until his death is achieved without corpses, without daggers, and without the birth of legend. For the modern republic, your America, above all this, is the most difficult craft. For rivals are not silenced by decree, but thrive on conflict. Yet even in this chaos, there are principles as old as Rome, sharpened now by the engines of attention. Step 1. Frame the battlefield. No rival dies on his own stage. The prince must pull the contest onto terrain he controls. This is done by reframing the question. Do not answer his accusations in his words. Force him to answer yours. If he cries, "They are stealing your voice," answer not with denial but with a greater cry. Who benefits from chaos? Who profits while you burn? To fight on his frame is to fight on his terms. To force him into yours is already half a victory. His followers will feel him reacting, not leading. And in politics, reaction is weakness. Step 2. Deplete the coalition. A rival rarely rules alone. His strength is borrowed from financiers, from media, from factions that see in him a ladder to their own power. Your task is to break the ladder. Offer to each ally what they cannot have while tied to him. To financier, stability. To media, access. To factions, prestige. Whisper to the second in command that he could be first, if only he tires of carrying another man's banner. Let jealousy do your work. Coalitions rot faster than they fracture. Pull at the threads until the cloth unravels of its own weight. Step 3. Starve the treasury. Politics is not sustained by words but by gold. A rival who cannot fund his messengers, his campaigns, his tours, will wither even if his rhetoric still burns. Thus, focus on the arteries of money. Shine light upon every irregularity, not with slander, but with law, with audit, with the cold arithmetic of exposure. Funders despise, risk more than defeat. Convince them that to remain with him is to court investigation. Embarrassment, uncertainty, they will depart quietly. And without funds, the stage dims, the megaphone breaks, the followers disperse. Step 4. Corrode the myth. Every rival lives not by fact but by myth. The savior, the rebel, the man of the people. To kill him politically, one must corrode the myth until it becomes laughable. But beware attack too sharply, and you grant him martyrdom. Better to wield the scalpel than the axe. Expose contradictions slowly, persistently, until the image cracks. If he preaches sacrifice, reveal his indulgences. If he invokes loyalty, display his betrayals. If he claims persecution, remind the crowd of his privileges. Do not invent sins, merely illuminate them. Truth wounds deeper than invention. When the myth decays, his followers feel shame. Shame is more final than defeat, for it silences applause without the need for prisons. Step 5. Govern better. This is the most brutal truth. The only sure way to kill a rival is to outperform him. The people will not abandon him because you ridicule him, but because your success exposes his futility. Deliver prosperity where he promised it. Deliver justice where he denounced corruption. Deliver calm where he predicted chaos. When his prophecies fail before the evidence of bread on the table, safety in the streets, stability in the courts, then he is already dead. His words echo, but they no longer command. Power lives not by argument but by outcome. Step 6. Enforce law relentlessly, yet publicly. When your rival errs, when he truly commits offense, use the law with surgical precision. Let no one say you hunted the man. Say only that you pursued the act. Each case must be transparent, every hearing open, every verdict proportionate. Do this, and you will never create a martyr. Instead, you create a precedent, and precedents are stronger than personalities. Your rival becomes the example by which others measure the price of error. This is a political death more final than any grave. Step 7. Withdraw attention. The cruelest punishment in your age is not prison but irrelevance. To starve a rival of attention is to drain his lifeblood. Do not always answer his words. Force him to repeat himself into silence. When the people see that he speaks, but the world continues, they learn that he no longer matters. An enemy forgotten is an enemy already dead. Step 8. Absorb and transform. At times, the rival's strength comes not from himself, but from the issues he monopolizes. To kill him politically, absorb part of his program into your own. If he speaks for workers, reform labor law yourself. If he speaks for neglected regions, deliver roads and schools. If he denounces corruption, clean the courts before he can. In this way, you rob him of his reason for existing. His followers no longer need him, for their grievances are addressed. His fire becomes smoke without heat. The 12 steps Summarized: frame the battlefield, deplete the coalition, starve the treasury, corrode the myth, govern better, enforce law relentlessly, withdraw attention, absorb the program, divide his lieutenants, elevate alternatives to him from within his camp, saturate the piazza with narratives of competence, never give him martyrdom. Follow these 12, and you will not need the dagger. Your rival will live to see himself irrelevant, a death more cruel than any inflicted by violence. Now I draw the threads together. You have learned that violence breeds martyrs, that spectacle multiplies rivals, and that the art of non-violent defeat is long but sure. Yet I must offer one last, dangerous counsel, the most controversial of my lessons. It is this: sometimes the surest way to kill a rival politically is not to destroy him outright, but to absorb him. The absorption of truth. Every adversary, even the most vulgar, lives by some grain of truth. Perhaps he voices the pain of a neglected class, the fear of a changing world, or the rage at corruption unpunished. If you dismiss this entirely, you immortalize him as the sole herald of that grievance. If you absorb it, if you make it part of your own governance, you rob him of exclusivity. This is not concession, but conquest. To steal an enemy's banner is more final than to trample it. His supporters find that the prince himself has enacted what they demanded. Their loyalty shifts, not because they changed their mind, but because their needs were met. The rival becomes an empty shell, shouting about problems that are already solved. Thus, you kill his reason for existing without killing his body. And when a man has no reason to exist politically, he is already dead. The peril of humiliation. But here lies the danger. Never humiliate utterly. If you leave a rival with no dignity, you guarantee his followers eternal grievance. Humiliation breeds revenge, and revenge waits patiently. Consider Sparta's error. They humiliated Athens, and Athens returned to war. Consider Versailles. It humiliated Germany, and Germany rose with fury. To crush without respect is to plant a delayed revolt. Therefore, if you must defeat a rival, leave him a road to retreat. Let him retire with honors, or let him claim some minor victory. The crowd will not begrudge him a token, but they will not forgive you if you grind his face into the dust. A defeated rival who can tell himself he was not destroyed but retired is a rival who does not poison the soil for generations. The Republic's burden. Your America is at a crossroads where rivals thrive on humiliation. Each side lives not only for victory, but for the destruction of the other. This is poison. For in a republic, perpetual vengeance is more deadly than any foreign enemy. The true statesman must therefore ask, how do I defeat without humiliating? The answer is paradoxical. Sometimes you must let the rival live a little, so that his death is political, not existential. He remains visible but irrelevant, acknowledged but disarmed. His movement dwindles not because he was crushed, but because he was absorbed, outperformed, and left behind. The Machiavellian law. And so I leave you with the most controversial law of power. Victory without humiliation is the only victory that lasts. If you kill the body, you create a martyr. If you kill the myth, you create silence. If you kill the reason for his existence, you create oblivion. But if you humiliate utterly, you create revenge. And revenge, unlike rivals, does not die, it breeds. Therefore, let the rival's death be political, not physical, gradual, not sudden, lawful, not secret, public, not shameful. Let him walk away believing he was beaten fairly, even as you know you orchestrated every string. That is mastery. That is Machiavellian. Conclusion. So hear me. Princes of the present age, never folge martius. Always frame the battlefield. Govern so well that rivals' prophecies turn to dust. Absorb the truths that give them oxygen. Defeat them without humiliating, so that victory endures. Thus will power live, because the rival has politically died. And thus will the republic endure, not because one man fell, but because the art of statecraft turned conflict into order. This is my counsel. It is dangerous, it is controversial, and it is true. For I, Machiavelli, have always taught. It is not enough to win. You must win in such a way that tomorrow's peace does not unravel.